I was a fire-stoker, a maiden, but because I was innocent, I helped the exiled, immortal like eldest son of the Prime Minister's mansion to detoxify. One night later, he didn't mind my clumsiness, and stayed by his side to serve him. I knew there was a world of difference between him and me, but I couldn't help but feel a love for him. I did my best to care for him and treat him well. Until one day, I heard a guard ask him what he would do with me after returning to the capital to marry Princess Lianhua. He smiled indifferently. A foolish country girl, Hua won't take me seriously. On the day we returned to the capital, I left alone, carrying my bag. He urged his horse after me, coldly saying, "Follow me, or don't come looking for me again." I smiled and shook my head. "Don't worry, sir. I will never look for you again." 1. Many guards arrived at Chuanyue Tower, seeking a girl of innocent virginity. The madam smiled awkwardly. "Gentlemen, there are so many girls like this in Liaodong City, but we're all running businesses. How can we be innocent?" The guards looked anxious and hesitant when I passed by, carrying a bundle of firewood. One pointed at me and asked, "Where's she?" The madam's mouth twitched. "She's a virgin, working in the kitchen." "I'm afraid you wouldn't consider her." "That's her." The poison in the young master can't be delayed any longer. Without a word, the men whisked me off to the carriage. The carriage sped along. Looking at their gloomy expressions and the cold gleam of the knives at their waists, I was so frightened I dared not utter a word. The carriage stopped in front of a courtyard. A man at the gate who looked like a leader glanced at me, his brow furrowed. "Why did you bring in such a girl? It's such a disservice to you, young master. Time is critical, and she's the only one we have." The head guard was disgusted, but he still led me into the room. The room was dim. Beside the innermost bed sat a man. One look at him, and I was stunned. From childhood to adulthood, I've never seen anyone so handsome. His eyebrows reached his temples, his skin was as white as jade, and his long, raven-colored hair flowed like brocade. His lips and the corners of his eyes were slightly rosy, as if smudged with rouge. He wore a loose white shirt that trailed the ground, like the most tranquil snow lotus blooming on the summit of a snowy mountain. But his whole body was shaking, his chest heaving, as if he was trying hard to suppress the pain. "Young master, the person is here. Have you told her the truth? Don't force her." The man's voice was hoarse and trembling. After the head guard explained a few words, I finally understood. The man in the bed is Pei Qingheng, the eldest son of the Prime Minister, who came from the capital to investigate a case. He was ambushed tonight, and has been poisoned by a powerful love poison. If he doesn't recover within an hour, his life is in danger. I've been a fireman at Chuanyue Tower for 2 years. I've been exposed to the world around me, and I understand the relationship between men and women, and I also know how to cure a love poison. The young man before me is like the bright moon in the sky, so it's no wonder he looks down on me, a mere mortal. Do you understand? Are you willing? Seeing me dazed, the head guard pressed me again. I hesitated, then whispered, "I want 20 taels of silver. Is that okay? My mother's illness has worsened. She's coughing up blood. The doctor said she needs wild ginseng as a tonic. But wild ginseng costs 20 taels per stem, which I couldn't earn in a lifetime of firemanship at Chuanyue Tower." The head guard sneered, his eyes flashing with disdain. "You're truly a country girl. If you save the young master, I'll give you not just 20 taels, but 200. Hearing this, I nodded quickly. "Okay, I do." The head guard left, leaving him and me alone in the room. He leaned against the headboard, his hair trembling slightly with his breath, his eyes downcast. The poison wouldn't be easy to cure if it lasted more than an hour. For the sake of the 20 taels, I gritted my teeth, and imitating the Chuanyue Tower girls, stepped forward to untie his belt. His body was burning hot, and he instinctively stepped back when I touched him. I quickly gave him an ingratiating smile. "Don't worry, young master. I will serve you well and help you detoxify. He looked up at me for the first time. His crimson eyes, tinged with lust, were breathtakingly beautiful. I tried to untie his clothes again. This time, he didn't shy away. A little bit of his snow-white, firm waist and abdomen was revealed. As I removed the last bit of my covering, he suddenly grabbed my waist, pulled me into the bed, and curled me under him. His warm breath tickled my neck. "What's your name? If it hurts, tell me." These were the only words he spoke to me. In the darkness, he sometimes seemed to lose his mind, reckless. But when he touched my tears, he slowed his movements. The passion was truly potent, wave after wave, lasting almost the entire night. At dawn, he finally stopped and held me in his arms. Instantly, I fell into a deep sleep. I don't know how long I slept. When I opened my eyes again, he was sitting by the window. He wore a jade crown and neatly dressed. The morning light reflected on his jade-like face, making him look like a fallen immortal, detached from the mundane world. I stared at him blankly, feeling as if everything that had happened last night had been a dream. Seeing me awake, his eyes flickered, his voice clear and sharp. "Rest a while longer. I'll have someone escort you back." With that, he stood up and walked out. I stretched out my arm toward his back, but couldn't even touch a scrap of his clothes. The bright moon in the sky was truly beyond the reach of a fire-stoker like me. 3. I didn't lie there for long before I pulled myself up and dressed. The head guard from yesterday was waiting outside the door, still with that same dismissive look. He handed me a packet of silver. I took the heavy silver, thought for a moment, and said, "Make Master Pei a bowl of 4-herb soup. Add some chuanxiong and astragalus. They're the best for replenishing qi and blood." The head guard's eyes flickered, and he pulled me toward the backyard. "The kitchen is here. You cook it. My favorite dish at Chuanyue Tower is 4-herb soup. In the mornings, I give each of my guests who stay overnight a bowl. They drink it all in one gulp and all say they feel refreshed. Today, I prepared soup for Pei Qingheng with even more care than usual. I stayed by the stove until the herbs were thoroughly simmered before I lit it. Fearing it might get cold on the way, I clutched the pot of soup tightly in my arms and trotted all the way to the study. Pei Qingheng was writing at his desk and was surprised to see me enter. I carefully placed the soup on the table, afraid it might upset him, so I stepped back. "This is 4-herb soup. Drink it while it's hot, young master." He blinked his long eyelashes and glanced at the head guard behind me. "Chongxian, what's going on?" "Young master, when we first came to Liaodong, you said it was bitterly cold here, and you didn't bring any maids with you. And your subordinates are all rough men, so why not let this girl stay and take care of your daily needs?" That guard, Chongxian, actually wanted me to stay. For some reason, my heart suddenly began pounding, and I dared not breathe, fearing Pei Qingheng would refuse. But he said nothing, just waved his hand casually. I followed Chongxian out, confused, and couldn't help asking, "Master Pei, will you let me stay?" Chongxian raised an eyebrow. Since Master Pei didn't refuse, that means he agrees. "How much do you make a month at Chuanyue Tower?" "I'll pay 10 times that." I quickly shook my head. "The silver you gave me is more than enough. I don't want any more." The silver I received this morning was not only enough to support Mother's recovery, but also enough to buy a new courtyard and many other things. And just being able to continue to see the moon, once so far away, was enough for me. 4. Pei Qingheng was very busy every day. Even when he came home at night, he would often read and write late into the night. The nights in Liaodong were dry and cold. His hands were cracked and bleeding. I spent the night boiling lard, sesame oil, and nectar together to make an ointment. "Master Pei, don't despise me. This is a folk remedy. It works." He looked at it intently, then slowly extended his hands. I picked up a dot of ointment and gently applied it to the wound. His hands were beautiful, with distinct joints and a jade white color. Unlike mine, which were rough and covered in scars of varying sizes. Your hands are frostbitten. Are you applying this, too? His clear, sweet voice suddenly spoke, startling me. I told him the truth. My family is poor. How can I afford such a fine thing? Seeing his long brows furrow slightly, I quickly added, but I've done this to the girls at Chuanyua Tower many times. Their hands are all white and tender, without a single scar. Master Pei, believe me, I do a great job. If it doesn't work, try again. His frown deepened and I frantically explained, tears nearly falling. Suddenly, he stretched out his long arm and grasped my hand. Later, apply more of it yourself, and don't get hurt again. I stared at him blankly, my face and ears burning. Fooled, I didn't know how to respond. He sighed and let me go. It's getting late, go get some rest. The days slipped by one after another. I tried my best to be nicer to Pei Qingheng, even nicer. Just seeing him smile occasionally would keep me awake all night. The weather had grown colder lately, and heavy snow had fallen. I stewed matsutake mushrooms early in the morning, waiting for Pei Qingheng to return. But that evening, only Changxian, covered in blood, came running back. As soon as he entered the room, he shouted. We encountered an assassin tonight, and I got separated from the young master. Come find him. Frightened, I wrapped my cloak around myself and rushed out. When the snow falls in Liaodong, it obscures all traces, making it impossible to tell the direction. In weather like this, a night spent outdoors would be enough to freeze to death. Outside, the wind and snow were raging, and I soon became separated from the others. Luckily, I grew up here and could still barely recognize the road. After walking for an unknown amount of time, I spotted a trail of snow-covered footprints on the ground. Following the footprints, I came to a small cave. By the moonlight, I saw that the person curled up inside was none other than Pei Qingheng. His eyes were closed, his face frighteningly pale. Mr. Pei, wake up, wake up. No matter how I called out, he remained motionless. I was filled with anxiety, and suddenly remembered what my mother had said, skin against skin, the warmth of one person can save a frozen person. Without thinking, I stripped off my clothes and hugged him tightly. The touch was as cold as ice, but I fought to hold it in, pressing my whole body against him. I don't know how long it was before I faintly heard him say, Huar, is that you? I was overjoyed and quickly said, Master Pei, don't sleep anymore. I'll take you back. The person next to me opened his eyes and looked straight at me. Slowly, his eyes cleared and he tilted his head. Xiaoyao, why are you here? Master Pei, it's snowing hard outside, but I know the way. Let's go back quickly. I said as I straightened my clothes. Then I took his hand and walked back through the snow and wind. All the way, I wanted to ask several times, who is Huar? But I never had the courage. 5. But it wasn't long before I knew who this Huar was. That day, I went to bring Pei Qingheng some midnight snacks, when I heard Changshuan's voice coming from the study. Master, the case is now complete, and we're preparing to return to the capital. What are your plans for Miss Xiaoyao? I'll take her with me. But you'll be marrying Princess Lianhua when you return, and Miss Xiaoyao might. The room suddenly fell silent. My ear pressed against the door, my hands trembling uncontrollably as I waited for Pei Qingheng's response. I felt a new level of anxiety and panic. It seemed like an eternity, yet only a moment, before his voice rang out. As cold and indifferent as ever. A foolish country girl, Huar wouldn't take her seriously. My heart settled at that moment. A foolish country girl. This is the distance between dust and the bright moon. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get even a little closer to him. I took a few deep breaths, my usual smile plastered on my face, and knocked on the door. Master Pei, supper is ready. Eat while it's hot. After that, everything was back to normal. I meticulously cared for Pei Qingheng until Chongxian told me to pack and return to Beijing with them. The night before my departure, I packed my bags and quietly left. My mother had moved to a town further south, and I was going to find her. The carriage journeyed slowly all night. At dawn, the sound of horse hooves echoed nearby. The rider was Pei Qingheng. His face was as gloomy as water as he hurried to my carriage and pulled the reins. "Come back with me." I looked up at him and smiled. "Little Yao is so foolish that I won't go back to the capital with Master Pei. Any of the servants in the capital can serve you better than little Yao." He paused for a moment, then said to me in a deep voice, "Stop making a fuss, little Yao, and follow me." "I'm not making a fuss," I continued, smiling. "Little Yao served you only for money. Now that I've saved enough, I'm saying goodbye to you." The light in his eyes dimmed, and he spurred his horse forward a few steps, saying coldly, "Follow me, or don't come looking for me again." I shook my head without hesitation. "Master, don't worry, little Yao will never come looking for you again." "Okay." He suddenly smiled, his face as beautiful as a flower, but his eyes were cold. Then he turned his horse around and rode away without looking back. I didn't want to linger, so I waved my whip and continued south. 6. My mother and I lived in the small town for 6 months. Her illness had improved considerably, and she longed for the warmth of the south even more. Later, we sold the house here. My mother went to Jiangnan, and I went to Beijing to accompany my neighbor, Aunt Shui, to deliver clothes and money to her son, who was studying at the Imperial College. The journey was smooth, but as we neared the capital, we were met by robbers. All our money was stolen, leaving us with nothing left, even for the return trip. Aunt Shui fell ill in her panic, and I used the last bit of silver I had hidden close to my body to rent a small house on the outskirts of Beijing. To make a living, I set up a stall selling liaodong noodle soup. I discovered that people in Beijing only sold the lean meat after slaughtering a pig, leaving the remaining offal at a very low price, so I bought all of it. Simmered it in an iron pot until tender, then marinated it overnight. When the white flour was cooked, I scooped a spoonful of the braised offal and filled the broth with it, and it was a bowl of fragrant, hot braised noodles. It was cheap, large and delicious, and many people loved it. My noodle stall was booming, with lines lining up every morning. If I keep selling at this rate, within a year I'll have enough money to travel back home with Aunt Shui. Early that morning, many people were eating noodles and I was busy, sweating profusely. One bowl, with plenty of broth. Suddenly, a voice sounded strangely familiar. I looked up, startled, and through the lingering heat, I saw Pei Qingheng standing in front of the stall, still as aloof and distant as ever. His expression was indifferent, as if he didn't recognize me. After speaking, he found a seat and sat down. I regained my composure and hurried to cook the noodles. I took the noodles out of the pot and poured the broth over them. Just as I was about to add chopped green onions, my hand paused. "He doesn't like green onions." After a moment's hesitation, I only added a few for garnish and passed them over. Such a simple, crude meal seemed a bit out of place in front of him. He, however, looked at the bowl of soup, curled his lips, and began to eat. I breathed a sigh of relief and turned back to my work. "Little one." I heard his calm voice from behind me. "Why did you come to the capital?" I lowered my head and replied honestly, "Looking for someone." The curve of his mouth seemed to widen. "Looking for someone? Didn't you say you'd never?" "Little one." He was suddenly interrupted by a shout. Chui Yen came running from the end of the alley, panting. "Didn't I say you could set up the stall after I got here? Why are you busying yourself again?" I smiled and waved my hand. "You have more important things to do at the Imperial College. You don't need to come. The academy is closed today. I'll help you set up the stall first, and then I'll take you and my mother to the lake. The market there is bustling." He said this as he rolled up his sleeves and began rolling noodles. Chui Yen is Aunt Chui's son, and he's become quite familiar with me during our time in the capital. We each rolled the noodles while the other prepared the sauce, and it was indeed much faster. While I was busy, I glanced up and caught a glimpse of Pei Qingheng, still sitting beside me. His eyes were dark as he stared at me intently. The fingers gripping the chopsticks were white from the strain. Little one. Cui Yen, who was standing beside me, noticed and nudged me with his elbow. The guy sitting over there looks to me like the newly appointed junior justice of the Dali Temple. Why is he staring at you? Do you know him? I quickly shook my head. How could I possibly know such a high-ranking official in the capital? Indeed, Cui Yen said, unfazed, and laughed. I was mistaken. Get busy. We'll go to the market afterward. Okay. I replied, scooping another ladle of cold water into the pot. When I was done, I poured the noodles into the broth and sprinkled them with scallions and chilies. All in one go. Since I promised myself I wouldn't visit him again, let's just pretend we'd never met. The events of Liaodong City won't be known to anyone else. I worked for a while longer, and when I looked up again, Pei Qingheng had already left without me noticing. Finally, we finished and sorted out the accounts. Aunt Shui said she hadn't been feeling well lately and wasn't feeling well, so she decided not to go shopping. I was a little anxious. Should we call a doctor? No, Aunt Shui said, pushing me out. You and Yenna should hang out for a while. Come back later. I need to get some sleep. After months here, this was my first time visiting the market. I realized just how bustling and prosperous the capital city was. The prices were also staggering. A pot of tea cost half a penny, and I had no idea what kind of precious tea was brewed in it. Little one, what do you like? I'll give it to you. Cui Yan's eyes sparkled, and he would show me something from his stall from time to time. I tugged at his sleeve. It's too expensive. A small mirror like that would cost me half a month's worth of noodles. These days I've been copying for the bookstore after school. I just got paid yesterday. He took the bag from his waist and shoved it into my hand. Before I left, my mother specifically told me how I'd explain to her if you didn't buy anything. He was already handsome, and his smile gave him an even more youthful, energetic air. It was something I'd rarely seen before in Liaodong City. I smiled and clutched my purse. You said you'd do it, don't feel bad when the money's gone. I'm so happy, how could I feel bad? He smiled too, took my hand, and became even more excited. After browsing for a while, I stopped. I looked at a small velvet-beaded flower in the corner of a stall. It was the Liaodong City ice flower. Liaodong is cold, and ordinary flowers can't survive. Only the ice flower is the most cold-resistant, blooming in clusters amidst the snow. Do you like it? Just as Cui Yen was about to take it, a slender arm suddenly reached out from behind him and snatched the beaded flower away. Then he threw down a piece of silver. No need to look. I was startled by the cold voice. I turned to see it was indeed Pei Qingheng. He held the small pearl flower between his fingers and glanced at me casually, his gaze cold and indifferent. I quickly turned my head and smiled at Cui Yen. It's okay, let's go look for something else. But Cui Yen straightened his clothes, walked up to Pei Qingheng, and bowed. Are you Mr. Pei, the junior minister of the Dali Temple? Yes. Cui Yen pointed at the pearl flower and said respectfully, Sir, my friend likes this flower. May I ask you to give it up? I'm willing to pay double the price. Friend. Pei Qingheng twitched his lips and turned to look at me. Since your friend likes it, why didn't you come and tell me in person? Come on, little one. Don't be afraid. Cui Yen waved at me. But I stood there stunned, unwilling to move forward. Pei Qingheng stood before me, still as elegant and refined as ever, yet I sensed something was different. Especially those eyes when they looked at me, they seemed to engulf me. Just as he was hesitating, a girl ran up from a distance and threw herself into Pei Qingheng's arms. Brother Qingheng, why didn't you call me when you came out shopping? The girl was in high spirits, adorned with jewels and precious stones. A lotus-shaped hairpin glittered in her hair. What is this? She spotted the pearl flower in Pei Qingheng's hand and curiously took it for a closer look. The yarn is low quality, the workmanship is shoddy. Brother Qingheng, how could you possibly fancy something like this? With that, she casually tossed the flower to the side of the road. Huar, don't. Pei Qingheng cried out in shock and tried to pick it up. But the street was bustling, and the flower was soon trampled underfoot by several people. Pei Qingheng's face turned pale, and he stood there in a daze. The girl smiled and took his arm, pulling him away. It's rare for me to leave the palace, so you have to accompany me for a stroll. 8. Don't be sad, Xiaoyao. Let's look for something else. Cui Yan carefully studied my face. He comforted me, but he looked even more distressed than I was. That girl must be Princess Lianhua. She was truly precious. She and Pei Qingheng were a match made in heaven. In their eyes, I was like a pearl flower carelessly thrown into the mud, not even worth a second glance. I understood the truth long ago, and I wasn't sad. I just felt it was a shame to lose such a beautiful pearl flower. I looked up at Cui Yan and smiled brightly. There's so much stuff at the market. Let's buy something else. After that, we wandered around for a long time, but we didn't see any more ice flower patterns. Cui Yan looked very dejected. It's all my fault. If I'd been quicker, Master Pei wouldn't have bought it. But since he bought it, why didn't he cherish it and throw it away? Cui Yan, come with me. I didn't want him to feel sorry for himself, so I pulled him over to a radish cart. Boss, I need a radish. Can you lend me your knife? Under Cui Yan's puzzled gaze, I held the radish in one hand and the knife in the other, carving it bit by bit. When I was little, when my father was still alive, he was the most skillful. He could carve all kinds of radish flowers, and they sold out quickly. I was fascinated by it and kept asking to learn. Alas, my father died of illness after only 2 years of teaching me. In a short while, I had carved the radish into an icicle flower. It was shimmering and very tempting. Mom, this is so beautiful. I want it. I want one too. I want one. Before I knew it, many children had gathered in front of the radish cart, all vying for the radish flowers. I also became interested, carving out everything my father had taught me. Little tigers, little rabbits, little flowers, little dolls. The children cheered and jumped around me, all adoring the carvings. Brother Qingheng, you've been looking at them for so long. If you like them, buy one. I was engraving intently when I heard Princess Lianhua's voice. I instinctively looked up and met Pei Qingheng's gaze not far away. My finger trembled and the blade cut into my flesh, gushing blood. Ah, does it hurt? Cui Yan exclaimed, taking my hand. Let's go to the clinic and see a doctor. I waved my hand dismissively. It's just a minor cut. Just apply some medicine. Okay, then let's go back. Cui Yan pulled me aside and smiled at the children again. Sister's injured, so I can't carve radish flowers for you anymore. The children were reluctant to leave. Then, brother, you have to take good care of sister. When she's better, bring her back. Okay, it's a deal. I followed Cui Yan out, but I couldn't help but feel a lingering gaze following me like a vine. 9. The wound on my hand wasn't serious. I applied some medicine, bandaged it, and began preparing the braised noodles for tomorrow's meal. It was late at night, and when everything was finally ready, I yawned and heard a knock on the door. Little one, open the door. It was Pei Qingheng's voice. Why was he here? I tiptoed to the door and fastened the latch tighter. It's late, it's inconvenient to open the door. Mr. Pei, please go back. After a long moment, a sigh came from outside. Since you told others you didn't know me, why do you still call me Mr. Pei? I'm so sorry, I quickly changed my tone. It's late, it's inconvenient for me to open the door. Please go back, sir. No more reply. I waited for a while, then grew extremely sleepy. I went inside, turned off the lights and quickly fell asleep. A dreamless night. I woke at dawn. As usual, I loaded the noodles, sauce, and soup onto the cart and prepared to set up my stall. But when I opened the door, I was stunned. A slender figure stood at the doorway, his clothes and hair stained with dew. Just like when we first met, the corners of his eyes were stained red, and his pupils seemed to be soaked with water, moist. When he saw me, the corners of his pale, thin mouth curled up. Little one. I never expected him to stand outside the door all night, looking a little bewildered. Is there something wrong? He pulled a shimmering jade bottle from his sleeve. Apply this, it won't leave scars. I didn't take it, clasping my hands behind my back. Thank you, sir. But I'm clumsy and unworthy of such fine medicine. If you have nothing else, please return. I have business to attend to. He swayed, his fingers curling slightly. Little one, I'm sorry. I smiled indifferently. It's just a pearl flower. You wouldn't even glance at it, so why would you care? It's not just the pearl flower. When will the noodles be ready? We've been lining up since early this morning. In the distance, several diners shouted. I lowered my head and softened my voice. Sir, I'm doing a little business to earn money for my trip home. Please don't disturb me, okay? His eyes flickered as he stared at me quietly. I pushed the cart, brushed past him, and ran toward the alley entrance. Sorry for waiting, everyone. I'll make you some soup right away. 10. The nights in Liaodong were pitch black and long, seemingly swallowing everything. Whenever night fell, Pei Qingheng always felt terrified. Sometimes, he even dared not sleep, fearing that if he closed his eyes, he would be plunged into darkness forever, never to wake up again. But then, at some point, this fear gradually faded. When he returned from a day of investigating a case outside, he would see the light on in the house from afar, and his heart would be filled with warmth and peace. He knew that if he opened that door, he would be greeted by a warm, spring-like warmth. Waiting inside was a silly, goofy little girl, and hot soup or tea warming on the stove. It would dispel the cold and fatigue of the day. The bitter cold in Liaodong was beyond imagination. His hands were frostbitten, his lungs were coughing from the cold, and his eyes were red, swollen, and tearful from the wind. But no matter what ails him, that little girl is always the first to notice. And then she devises various remedies to cure him. In the dead of night, listening to the howling wind outside, he can sleep peacefully. Because of that little girl. Slowly, the case is almost solved. The masterminds use their final, ruthless move, seeking to silence Pei Qingheng. And it happened that day that it snowed heavily. Pei Qingheng got lost, cold and blurry, convinced he was doomed. But that little girl found him. Just like the night they first met, her body was petite, soft, and warm as fire. She saved him once again. As they walked back together, fingers intertwined, braving the wind and snow, Pei Qingheng realized he truly couldn't leave her. So when Changxian came to ask what to do with Xiaoyao, he said without hesitation that he would take her back to the capital. But then Changxian mentioned Princess Lianhua again. He realized he hadn't thought about Lianhua in a long time. Lianhua and he had known each other since childhood. Lianhua was the apple of His Majesty's eye, spoiled and yet incredibly dependent on him. When they were little, he treated Lianhua like a younger sister, trying to please her and make her happy. When they grew up, he saw nothing wrong with the mention of their marriage. Besides, his family background and career prospects necessitated such a marriage. But now, when Changxian mentioned Lianhua and Xiaoyao together, Pei Qingheng felt an inexplicable uneasiness well up in his heart. He tried hard to conceal it, saying in a cold tone, "A foolish country girl, Hua wouldn't care about her." But such a foolish girl left without a word. Pei Qingheng noticed this and chased after her without a second thought. He ran all night and finally caught up with her. But she said that their relationship was just a money transaction. At that moment, Pei Qingheng was furious. He wanted to ask, was that night of passion, that nightly companionship, that life-threatening rescue in the snowy wind all for money? But his innate pride and arrogance only made him say coldly, "Come with me, or don't come to me again." But she still didn't go with him, and said, "What do you mean I'll never look for him again?" Pei Qingheng walked away alone. He laughed at himself as he walked. He was truly mad. He'd chased her all night long for a country girl. It was so worthless. After returning to the capital, he often suffered from insomnia late at night, thinking about Xiaoyao. Even when he fell asleep, his dreams were filled with her. He truly missed that foolish country girl so much. Half a year later, he accidentally heard about a stall selling braised noodles in the capital, owned by a young girl from Liaodong. He hurried over after leaving court, his heart pounding. As he got closer, he finally saw clearly that it was indeed her. His eyes suddenly felt moist. It must have been the steam rising from the cauldron. "One bowl, with more broth." He said only this, then hurriedly turned to find a seat. He was afraid that if he looked at her any longer, he would lose his composure in front of everyone. The noodles arrived, with only a few chopped green onions. She had indeed remembered his preferences. Pei Qingheng tried his best to suppress the quirk in his lips and asked her what she was doing in the capital. It turned out she was looking for someone. His heart began to beat again, but he still feigned indifference and asked, "Didn't you say you'd never come back to see me again?" But before he could finish his words, he was interrupted. He then realized what a complete clown he was. Xiaoyao had indeed come to the capital looking for someone. But it wasn't him. The little girl who had always been by his side, whose heart and eyes were filled with him, was now with someone else. 11. Life went on as usual. I set up my stall and sold noodles as usual. But every day I ran into Pei Qingheng. He asked for a bowl of noodles. I cooked it, added only a few chopped green onions, and brought it to him. He ate silently and left. No one said a word. I didn't understand why, with his status and the wealth of delicacies he'd tasted, he had to come to my place every day for a bowl of noodles. But he never spoke, let alone interrupted my business. I didn't mind, just treating him as an ordinary customer. Lately, Cui Yan had been coming less often. He had passed the autumn imperial examination this year, and was studying diligently every day. After 10 years of hard work, and Cui sold several acres of paddy fields to support his studies. Just for the hope that one day he would pass the imperial examination. One day, I was selling noodles and was about to close my stall when I ran away. "Someone's here. Little miss, something's happened." This was Cui Yan's classmate and friend, and we'd had lunch together several times. At this moment, his face was filled with panic, and he gasped, "Just now, many officials suddenly arrived at the academy, saying that someone bribed the examiners and cheated in this year's autumn examination. Several people have been arrested, including Cui Yan. Cheated and leaked the exam papers." I blinked in confusion. "Is it serious?" "Of course it is." The classmate's face turned pale with fear. Throughout the dynasties, cheating in the autumn examination was a serious crime, punishable by permanent banishment at the very least, and exile and death at the worst. What? I was terrified. Where was Cui Yan taken? Can we go ask him what happened? A case this serious will probably be heard by the Dali Temple, where the emperor's court hears the case. How can we possibly get in? After delivering the letter, the classmate hurried back. I was so distracted packing up my stall that I accidentally broke 2 bowls. I couldn't tell Aunt Cui about this in advance. She was barely well, and if she knew what had happened to Cui Yan, she might get sick again. I returned home and sat in silence all day and all night. After daybreak, no one set up a noodle stall, but instead stood guard at the entrance of the alley. In the morning sun, a familiar figure in green approached. Pei Qingheng also saw me. He paused, then hurried over, asking in a deep voice, "What's wrong, Xiaoyao?" The tears I'd been holding back for a day and a night suddenly burst forth. With a plop, I knelt before him. "Master Pei, please, save Cui Yan." He froze for a moment, then quickly bent over and helped me up. "What happened to Cui Yan?" I told him about the cheating in the autumn examination, and sobbed, begging. Cui Yan must have been wrongly accused. He used the money from selling his family's land to support his studies, and he often copied books at the bookstore to supplement his income. How could he have the money to bribe the examiners? Pei Qingheng lowered his eyes, his brows furrowed, and I couldn't tell what he was thinking. Anxiety welled up in me, and I couldn't help but want to kneel again. "Please, Lord Pei, find out the truth and save him." He hurriedly grasped my hand, then, with a gentle pull, practically embraced me. "I've been sorting through old files in the palace these past few days, and didn't know about this. Don't worry, I'll find out the truth." I was instantly overjoyed, and the tears that had just stopped welling up again. "Thank you, Lord Pei, thank you. Don't cry. I'm here. Little miss, don't be afraid." He wiped my tears, a gentle look across his beautiful features. I stared at him, momentarily forgetting to look away. 12. Pei Qingheng said he was going to investigate the truth, but he left many days later, and there was no news. I was in a state of turmoil, and afraid that Aunt Cui would notice something was wrong. I forced myself to set up my stall every day. But with something on my mind, I kept making mistakes when I was busy, miscalculating my bills several times. Seeing this, Aunt Cui couldn't help but complain, "Yenna hasn't even been seen in days. You're so busy, and you didn't even come to help." I quickly smiled and advised, "The imperial examination is coming soon. It's most important for him to focus on his studies." "That's right," Aunt Cui said, a look of relief on her face. Before his father died, he repeatedly told me to support his studies. Fortunately, Yenna is doing well. 2 days later, as I was about to go shopping, someone stopped me at the entrance of an alley. "Come on, let's go to the Ministry of Justice prison." It was Chang Xian, the guard who accompanied Pei Qingheng. Last time, after I rescued Pei Qingheng on a snowy night, he treated me much better and spoke politely. But after 6 months, he'd become cold again. The Ministry of Justice prison. An idea struck me. "But will you take me to see Cui Yan?" "Yes." "Wait a moment then." With that, I quickly ran home. I took out 2 sets of clothes and thick bedding I'd prepared long ago. I also took out all the money I'd saved these days. I heard that bribes to the jailers could make life easier. As I left, carrying my bags, Chang Xian's face darkened and he sneered, "You really care about that kid?" I didn't understand how I'd offended him again, so I quickly smiled and said, "Thank you so much for taking me to the Ministry of Justice." "Why are you thanking me? If it weren't for the young master's arrangement, would you have been able to see that kid?" "Oh," I stammered. "Then thank Lord Pei for me." "You." Chang Xian paused, swung his sleeves, "You're really stupid and foolish." We were silent all the way. I followed Chang Xian into the Ministry of Justice, and walked for a long time through the dark corridors, stopping outside a prison door. "Cui Yan, is that you?" I called softly, and the person huddled in the corner hurried over. "Xiaoyao, why are you here?" Cui Yan had lost a lot of weight, his face a bit pale, but he was in good spirits, and his body showed no visible injuries. Seeing me, he was very excited. "Xiaoyao, believe me, I didn't bribe the examiner. And please keep this a secret from my mother, I'm afraid she won't be able to handle it." I nodded vigorously. "Don't worry, Aunt Cui doesn't know what's happened to you. I believe you've been wronged, and I believe the Dali Temple will clear your name." "That's good, thank you very much, Xiaoyao." Cui Yan smiled. Although he looked disheveled, he still had that air of high spirits. Reassured, I handed his belongings to him one by one. Take the money and arrange it. I'll bring it back to you later when I have the chance. Xiao Yao. Cui Yan's eyes sparkled, and he grasped my hand through the cell door. Are you done yet? Get out of here. Chang Xian urged impatiently from behind, and I quickly pulled my hand away. I'll take good care of Aunt Cui. Don't worry. We'll wait for your safe release. 13. Leaving the prison, the sun was shining brightly, and a tall figure stood in the light. Dressed in a jade belt and a crimson official robe, his gaze rested on me. This was the first time I'd seen Pei Qingheng in official uniform, and I hurried over to pay my respects. Thank you, Master Pei. I'm deeply grateful. He nodded but said nothing. I had nothing to say either, so I saluted again and turned to leave. But after taking 2 steps, Chang Xian's voice suddenly rang out. You Xiaoyao, do you have any conscience? You held hands and gave that brat so many favors, yet all you ever say is thank you to my young master. These past few days, the young master has been so busy with this case that he's been starving and sleepless. He caught a cold and couldn't even speak, yet he refused to rest. And you, on the other hand, are like this. Chang Xian. Pei Qingheng interrupted him, coughing violently. After a long cough, he finally caught his breath and smiled softly at me. Xiaoyao, go back and wait for me. I'll get to the bottom of everything. His voice was indeed quite hoarse. Just then, a carriage arrived outside, taking me away. Through the window, I could faintly hear the intermittent coughing. Back home, for some reason, I felt a deep sense of emptiness. After a moment's pause, I went to the stove and started a fire. I peeled and cut the pear into pieces, then cooked it with Sichuan fritillary bulbs and Job's tears, adding 2 pieces of candied ginger. There wasn't a proper soup bowl at home, so I had to find a small jar. I cradled the jar in my arms, hired a carriage, and headed for the Prime Minister's residence. But upon arrival, I realized it was enormous, with several gates alone. Without someone to let me in, I couldn't get in. I was wandering back and forth at the entrance, anxiously waiting, when I saw Chang Xian hurried past. Chang Xian, I hurried over. I made a throat-soothing soup for Lord Pei. Could you please take it to him? Chang Xian glanced down at me, his lip curled. Are you incompetent? Why don't you take it yourself? I can't get in, huh? Before I could finish my sentence, he dragged me along and strode through the door. The Prime Minister's residence was vast from the outside, and even more disorienting from the inside. After many twists and turns, we finally stopped at the door of a house. The young master is inside. Come in. Before this imposing door, I felt a surge of timidity. Mustering my courage, I pushed it open with trembling hands. The room was silent, with the faint scent of ink. Pei Qingheng was reading something at the table. Without even looking up, he simply asked, "What's going on?" I paused, then cautiously approached. Sir Pei. The page between my fingers suddenly crumpled. He slowly raised his head, his eyes flickering, a faint glint in his eyes. Xiaoyao, what brings you here? I glanced at the jar in my hand. Compared to the elegant furnishings of the room, it seemed decidedly shabby. I made you some soup. If you don't mind. Here, he replied bluntly, extending his hand. I poured the soup into the teacup on the table, then lifted it up and shook it. The temperature was just right. Sir Pei, drink. He took it and drank slowly. After finishing 1 cup, I quickly poured another. Sit. He gestured to the chair next to him, and resumed reading, occasionally sipping his soup. A few times I considered leaving the pot and taking my leave, but the words were on my lips before I swallowed them back. The room fell silent again, with only the rustling of pages turning. Gradually, I grew sleepy and drifted off to sleep. It was a very deep sleep. When I awoke, I found myself lying on a couch by the window. It was dark outside, and the lights were off. The clear moonlight filtered through the window, illuminating the face of the person sitting beside the couch. His eyes were like water, even more hazy than the moonlight itself. I jolted awake with a start and scrambled to my feet. I'm sorry. I'll leave now. I won't bother Master Pei anymore. Little one. My hand was suddenly grabbed, then held in a warm palm. Can you please not leave? His voice was still hoarse, with a subtle pleading in it. I was completely stunned. His eyes darkened, and with a slight force, he pulled me into his arms. Let's do it just like we were in Liaodong City, okay? Just like we were in Liaodong City. My heart trembled, but I quickly calmed down. Master Pei, this is the capital, how can it be the same? To be honest, I've never dreamed of the grandeur of the Prime Minister's mansion. If I stay, who in the entire palace will respect me? Besides, you're getting married to Princess Lianhua. The jewelry I was reluctant to buy at the market last time was thrown away after just one glance. Although I'm humble, I don't want to be treated like an ant. I swallowed back the sob in my throat, spoke in one breath, and struggled to get out. It's getting late, I need to go home. He slowly loosened his grip on me. After a long moment, he finally opened the door. I'll take you home. It was as if I were back to that snowy night, just him and me under the moonlight. But this time, it was him holding my hand, leading me step by step. 14. A few days later, Cui Yan finally returned. Seeing how haggard he looked and how much thinner he had become, and Cui couldn't help but feel distressed. Has something happened recently? How did you end up like this? Cui Yan smiled nonchalantly. I was preparing for exams lately, studying day and night, and I didn't come to see Mother or Xiaoyao. Aunt Cui didn't suspect anything and kept telling him that studying was more important than taking care of his health. Cui Yan didn't stay long before returning to the academy. He also wanted to prepare for the upcoming autumn examination. I saw him off, but he didn't leave straight away as usual. Instead, his face flushed, and he seemed hesitant to speak. Xiaoyao, I've been so grateful to you these days. If I pass the exam, can I come to your house to propose marriage? Propose marriage? I suddenly remembered my past with Pei Qingheng in Liaodong City. Cui Yan was a very good person, and those things shouldn't be hidden. But everything had to wait until he finished the exam. I smiled and nodded. Okay, I wish you success. His face lit up, and he waved happily. I'm leaving now, Xiaoyao. Wait for me. Cui Yan returned to the academy, and life returned to normal. However, he had already saved up all the money to pay the jailer, and he had to start saving again. After finishing my work that day, I went to the street to ask someone to write a letter to my mother, telling her I'd probably have to wait a while longer to see her. As I was walking, I heard a sudden commotion behind me. Before I could react, someone grabbed me and threw me into a carriage. I fell hard, and it took me a while to get up. The carriage was magnificent and spacious, and in the center sat a graceful and elegant woman. Her features looked familiar. I looked closer and saw it was Princess Lianhua. Why had she grabbed me? Are you Xiaoyao? She glanced at me with disdain, her chin raised. You're so ignorant of your own limitations, running all the way to the capital to harass Brother Qingheng. She was a princess I couldn't afford to offend. I quickly knelt to explain, Princess, you misunderstood. I was accompanying someone. We came to the capital together to look for the imperial student Cui Yan, and we didn't bother Lord Pei. Cui Yan? Princess Lianhua was stunned for a moment, a thoughtful look on her face. So you've already found him, why are you still lingering? My money was stolen by bandits, so I've had to do some small business in the capital to save for my return trip. Nonsense. Princess Lianhua slammed the table. In this clear and bright world, how could there be bandits beneath the feet of the emperor? It seems you won't leave unless I teach you a lesson, she said, opening the carriage window and peering out. There's a dense forest at the foot of Nanshan Mountain outside the capital. I'll leave you there for the night and see if you dare stay. The carriage headed towards Nanshan Mountain. I was terribly anxious, but no matter how I explained, Princess Lianhua turned a deaf ear. We were almost there. From outside the carriage, the sound of swords and knives rang out in the woods. Then I heard the guards shout, "Bandits are coming. Protect the princess." Princess Lianhua's face paled with fear, and she looked in disbelief at the men surrounding us outside the carriage. Impossible. How could there be bandits? I gave a wry smile. Princess, now you'll believe me, right? This carriage is so magnificent. It must contain a wealthy noble. Don't let this fat sheep escape. Despite the guards' desperate efforts, the bandits were numerous and followed the carriage relentlessly. Amidst a hail of arrows, the wounded horse neighed and ran like crazy into the dense forest. The driver lost control and was thrown from the carriage. Help! Help me! Princess Lianhua lost her former dignity and cried out for help. The carriage was in after running for a while through the dense forest, the wheels got caught on something and abruptly stopped. Instantly, Princess Lianhua and I were thrown from the carriage. After a burst of pain, I climbed to my feet. I moved my arms and legs, but I wasn't seriously injured. But Princess Lianhua, beside me, cried even harder. My leg hurts. I went over to check and found a deep gash on her leg, bleeding profusely. Princess, stop crying. Your cries will attract the bandits. She shuddered with fear, barely managing to hold her breath, looking at me tearfully. I sneaked out of the palace, and I didn't have many guards with me. Ah, it hurts. She tried to struggle, but I held her down. I tore off my clothes and wrapped them tightly around her wound until the bleeding stopped. Then I waved to her again. The bandits will come along. We found them by the wheel tracks. Come over here, I'll carry you and leave quickly. She was stunned for a moment, staring at me blankly. I didn't dare delay any longer. I gritted my teeth, lifted her up, and headed into the woods. After walking for a while, a muffled voice came from behind me. You can carry me if you want, but why are you strangling me? It hurts so much. I sighed deeply. Princess, if your wound keeps bleeding, the bandits will find us no matter where we go. She paused, speechless. I carried her around the woods several times until we finally found a secluded cave. Let's hide here for now. When the stars come out at night, I'll find the direction and take you away. I had just sat down to rest when she screamed again. There's a spider. Right at the cave entrance. I'm terrified of spiders. Get rid of it. There was indeed a spider at the cave entrance. Its web had been damaged when we entered, and it was now working to repair it. Shoo, don't make a sound. I raised my hand to cover her mouth. Maybe this spider can save our lives. She naturally didn't believe it. But now, injured and unable to move, she couldn't command me. She could only endure it, staring at the spider in fear. We waited in the cave for nightfall. Just as night was about to fall, the noisy footsteps of the bandits could be heard outside again. Search carefully. It's rare to find such a fat creature. Don't let it get away. The bandits were here again. Princess Lianhua's eyes widened in fear, and she covered her mouth tightly, not daring to move. My heart was pounding, and my forehead and palms were covered in cold sweat. Not long after, footsteps approached. Have you searched that place? Is anyone there? It's just a hole with a spider web. There shouldn't be anyone there. Then search somewhere else quickly. Don't let them get away. The footsteps and voices gradually faded away. Princess Lianhua breathed a sigh of relief, looking at the spiderweb, tears streaming down her face. Thanks so much to you. I felt secretly grateful. Spiders must be like dirt in your eyes, but sometimes, dirt can save your life. She paused for a long moment, wiped her tears, and whispered, "I'm sorry. I've always been the one hurting you. I was the one who falsely accused Cui Yen of bribing the examiner, hoping to have him removed from the exam, so you could leave the capital immediately. But later, Brother Qingheng found out the truth, and Cui Yen was gone. If he were released from prison and could take the exam, I'd come up with another way to harm you, hoping you'd give up and leave. It's all my fault. Now I understand why Brother Qingheng liked you and not me. I finally understood that she was the one who framed Cui Yen. But when I heard her say Pei Qingheng liked me, I couldn't help but laugh. Princess, you misunderstood. Master Pei thinks I'm stupid and foolish, so he wouldn't like me. I thought so at first, until I learned he'd waited all night at the alley entrance just to get your face. And when I heard him drunk, calling your name, begging you not to leave, I finally understood what it meant to like someone. Waiting all night, drunk, calling my name. He had never mentioned any of this to me. Hearing it now, I felt a wave of intense pain well up in my heart. The pain was so intense that tears welled up. 16. Finally, darkness fell, and the sound of the bandits disappeared. I emerged from the cave and gazed up at the starry sky, reminiscing about my childhood, when my father and I went up the mountain to chop firewood. He taught me how to use the stars to determine direction. Come, Princess, I'll take you out. I carried Princess Lianhua on my back, trying to walk as fast as possible. She became much more obedient, resting comfortably on my back, mumbling from time to time, "I'm sorry, I'm too heavy. I'll stop being greedy and eat less from now on." Finally, I could see the edge of the dense forest. I was overjoyed and broke into a run. But my feet suddenly gave way, and I fell into a deep pit. In a moment of crisis, I pushed with all my might, pushing Princess Lianhua away. At the same time, I landed in a quagmire. "Little one, what's wrong with you?" Princess Lianhua screamed, trying to pull me out. "Don't come over," I shouted urgently. "Even if you come, you'll get stuck. We'll die here together." "Then, what should we do?" "Keep going this way, and you'll be out of the forest. If you meet anyone, ask the princess to send them to rescue me." "Okay, wait. I'll definitely find someone to rescue you." She bit her lip and nodded vigorously. But after just 2 steps, she fell because of her leg injury. But she didn't cry anymore. She struggled to her feet and ran away again. Princess Lianhua disappeared. All around me was silence, with only the cold moonlight for company. Though I dared not move, I sank deeper and deeper. The mire spread from my calves to my thighs to my waist and then to my chest. Breathing became increasingly difficult. I thought I was going to die here. I felt so sorry for my mother that I couldn't live with her in Jiangnan. And that person. Before I died, I actually wanted to see him again. Xiaoyao. A cry interrupted my thoughts. Was I hallucinating? Xiaoyao, where are you? Xiaoyao. The anxious, tearful voice grew closer. I hadn't misheard it. It was Pei Qingheng. He had come to save me. I cried out, "I'm here. Master Pei, save me." Xiaoyao. He had finally arrived. His hair was disheveled, his body covered in dirt, a stark contrast to his usual impeccable demeanor. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." His eyes gleamed with ecstasy as he untied his belt and threw it to me. I wrapped it securely around my wrist. Inch by inch. Finally, with a sudden tug, he pulled me into his arms. "It's okay, Xiaoyao, don't be afraid." Having escaped death, a thread in my brain finally snapped. My vision went black and I lost consciousness. 17. It was 3 days later when I regained consciousness. Princess Lianhua confessed everything she had done to the emperor. She had injured her leg while running to save me, and she had to limp ever since. Later she asked to be granted a title and travel outside the palace. She said she wanted to be the insignificant person she had never cared about before. A few days later, Chui Yen came to see me. He was filled with guilt, his head lowered, not daring to look at me. Little one, I actually knew you were trapped in the swamp that day. I wanted to save you, but I hesitated. I was afraid I'd get stuck and lose my life. I was a coward, I'm sorry. What's there to be sorry about? I smiled nonchalantly. You're the only son in your family, and your father died young. If anything happened to you, how would Aunt Chui survive? It's perfectly normal for you to hesitate and be afraid. But Lord Pei wasn't afraid. Just when I was hesitating, I saw him rush in without caring for his life. That's when I realized I couldn't compare to him. Before leaving, Chui Yen solemnly told me, little one, from now on, you and Lord Pei must be happy. With Pei Qingheng, happiness. My heart was filled with melancholy, filled with his shadow. He who coldly called me stupid, he who begged me with red eyes not to leave, he who risked his life to save me. In the end, everything dissolved into the green figure before me. Xiaoyao. He had finally arrived, 2 scrolls in hand. Given by His Majesty, which one would you like to see first? He slowly walked over to me and touched my head. His eyes were as gentle as a spring stream. I looked at him with some embarrassment. I can't read. Then I'll show you. He gathered me in front of him, took my hand, and opened a scroll. This is your name, Yu Xiaoyao, and this is mine, Pei Qingheng. I seemed to understand something, and my breath trembled. This is us. He smiled brightly. Yes, it's the decree granting our marriage. What about the other one? It's the decree granting my exile. I grew up in the capital, always feeling superior to others. Even judging cases in the Dali Temple, I was limited by my own limited perspective. From now on, I must travel to all corners of the world to see for myself, to truly understand the suffering of the people and the rise and fall of the nation. As he spoke, he rested his chin on the top of my head, gently rubbing it. Little one, my exile is in Jiangnan this time. Let's go visit mother together, okay? I was overjoyed to be able to visit mother and nodded quickly. Okay. That's what you said. You're finally staying with me. Huh? When did I say I'd stay with you? Just now. No, Master Pei, you misheard. Still calling me Master Pei. He grabbed the back of my head and kissed me directly. Xiaoyao, I'm determined to follow you. If you never come to me, then I'll always be looking for you.